So it's 5 o'clock, and
Yes.
and we're getting started on this. My name is Carl Craig. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Who's joined in? Whoever stayed since sound check. Whoever's joining us. This is my weekly talk Thursdays of this month, Black History Month, celebrating all Black vinyl, which is the celebration of Black voices and Black music played all on vinyl, and it's to also celebrate Black History Month. Last week was Francisco Moore-Catlett, and he's a Detroit legend and mentor, and he used to play with Sun Ra, and his mom is Elizabeth Catlett, who's a force within the world of sculpture and drawing, and just a wonderful woman. So continuing on this week, we have our special guest, another Detroit legend who's wearing a hat. Detroit style player, Detroit player.
Always a little bit. It's in there. West Side.
Jessica Carramore.
So happy.
Welcome. Thank you very much for joining me today.
I'm honored. I love what you're doing. I think it's absolutely genius. Yeah, and I saw the first one. I was like, oh, I'm sharing. Everyone needs to be looking at this because I love vinyl, and I love the music that you make. I love house and love techno. I just love like the music that comes out of this city. You know. Yeah. And I've, lived in other places, and, like you have traveled, all over the place, but there's something real special about in the water in Detroit. Yeah. Because nobody gives it to us, Mm-hmm. So yeah, shout out to Kyle Craig and to all the pioneers of this thing they call electronic music now, Yeah,
I was talking about it the other day, is that we just got the hustle in us in Detroit. It's like, the discussion of how, with music, how you have artists that get managers, and especially in electronic music, you have this combination of a concert of colors, let's say, of people who are making techno music. But, because techno started in Detroit, it started within the Black community, it's a Black thing.
That's right.
But it seems as though the artists from Detroit that started this whole thing and that continue have to hustle. They hustle actually harder than many of the other artists that are coming from Europe, that are coming from, other places that don't have that, that Black background. It seems like they don't have to hustle as hard.
Well, they don't. They have white privilege, and for one, and a lot of them. And then there's this unfortunate thing where people don't know that techno is Black. Now, because I'm from Detroit, I knew it. I'm in New York, and I would bring up techno. They'd be like that Black folks don't. I said, Black folks invented techno. It's our music genre. But that's with so many things that are taken from us. And then I can even say for poetry, right? Because poets are just philosophers. We go back to the beginning of time, but people will say, no, T.S. Eliot. I was taught Eliot, Frost, Whitman, Shakespeare, dead white men, and some couple of white girls, Emily Dickinson. That's what I thought poetry sounded like. I didn't know poetry sounded like Sonia Sanchez or Ntozake Shange or Audre Lorde or Gwendolyn Brooks. Like, no one told me poems could be gangster. It could someone could open their mouth and sound like me. And they be called a poet, and speaking with that kind of vernacular, that I could relate to, being from the west side of Detroit. Then no one told me poems belonged to me. And being a Black girl at a Detroit public high school, and so we get repackaged things that we created all the time. And same with rock and roll music.
Yeah, right. Because with rock, if you grew up listening to Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin.
And I did.
Yeah, and we all did, right?
Yep.
But, if you didn't, especially younger people now, if they don't know about Jimi Hendrix, then they don't know that he was the cat that was right at the same time. And he was doing all this amazing music. He was one of the greatest guitarists that ever lived.
Right.
And if you don't know about that, then you won't go back to Little Richard. You won't go back to, Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and
Come on.
the blues guys that were.
Yeah.
Ike Turner was the guy who, the reason why it's distorted guitar is because of Ike Turner. And I mean it's incredible. But on the poetry side, so for you guys
Rosetta
who don't,
Tharpe, let's talk about Rosetta Tharpe, because we got to talk about
sure,
which is why I do Black Women Rock, because they don't talk about Black women in rock and roll in the same sentence anywhere. Because at least Jimi Hendrix has become more of a household name. Well, at least people know who that is, right? They got a reference. They saw the Woodstock doc, whatever, right? They know who Jimmy is. But the Black women in rock and roll, I mean, that there's people who don't even know who Grace Jones is, and definitely like Betty Davis, who predated Nona Hendrix, and who I do Black Women Rock for 16 years. They don't know their names, and now the contemporaries, the women now who make rock and roll, and they out here, Liza Colby, Timba Kali, Joy, Yazra, it's countless women out here making this music who don't have any radio play. Don't have anybody, no promoters creating stages for them. And that's why I created the platform, because nobody, and it's crazy that the platform even still needs to be created.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so, but that,
But during this time, not only with the pandemic, but everything that's been happening with Me Too and all things, there have definitely been portals that are kind of opening in order to let people be able to walk in and see something else. Because if it wasn't for the pandemic, I think that people's time wouldn't have the time for even wanting to go further and find some things out. And there's been some talk, actually there's a plugin company called Output, and they did a post yesterday that was Techno is Black. And they did a post a few days before that, which is Rock is Black, and they had Rosetta Tharpe, as the main entity. The main photo that you saw was her.
Nice.
And it's gotten to that point that portal has opened. Now I hope what doesn't happen, which is what people have been trying to do with Black Lives Matter, is to water it down.
Exactly.
And come in and walk in and have their own kind of thing. So you have people that say Black Lives Matter, and they're Black Lives Matter, and then all of a sudden they're trying to put their little little thing into it, and dilute it in whatever their way is. And I hope that doesn't happen with
it'll happen if we don't control the narrative. We have to control the narrative.
Yes.
We have to be the ones saying, you have to be saying techno is Black. Like if someone else is, I don't need no white boy to tell me that. Like I don't. What I mean? I need you to tell me. I need Juan Atkins to tell me. I need Mike to tell me. I need Jeff Mills to tell me, because I know that y'all made the music. And so, it's deep. Even now, like I just, with the little sister doing the inauguration poem. Like that's a 22-year-old version of me, right? So I see myself in her. I said, okay, yes, baby. But cover of Time magazine, she reading at the Super Bowl. Those are all beautiful things. But what's for me the important thing is they don't talk about her like she's come down from the sky. She ain't come down from no sky. She knows who I am. She knows who Ursula Rucker is. She knows who Sonia Sanchez is. Like little sister reading. She knows. She knows. She comes from a continuum of Black women poets who've been writing and reading so that we can get to her. And so we can't let white media take her, use her up while she's the hot thing, and act like nothing knows. There's no more 20-year-old Black girl poets that write poems like that. Oh, yes, there are. I had them in my classrooms, in my high school classroom. They could write just like that. There's a whole lot of Black girls with lots of stories that deserve platforms just as big as that.
With every movement, I think there needs to be a Little Richard. So, there needs to be somebody, man, woman, adult or child, that's like, ooh, this is, I created rock and roll, whatever he always said, I created rock and roll, and he was on Merv Griffin, and
everybody's talking everywhere.
Yeah, everybody talk to me, and there really has to be that constantly, because yes, what happens in entertainment is that we take what we want, and then we throw away the rest of it. So there's always going to be that person that's going to be on top for this time, whether it's this generation or whatever. And coming up in Detroit, we're used to this kind of thing where, there was a hot record. So whatever that hot record that person is sold, say Laid Back White Horse,
Yep.
you know, that was the hot record.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the other music is that Laid Back ever made.
But you know that one record, right?
I know that one. Funky Town, Lips Incorporated. I know that record. I have no idea what else. And this is just how that whole system of you know, the industry of entertainment, of music is.
Yeah.
And, you know, with poetry, people look at that as entertainment instead of looking at it as being art, or looking at it as being something that is necessary. They look at it as it being entertainment.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's such a cultural roots art activist rooted art form. It's like it's Creole culture. It's storytelling. It's how we care. It's African. It's, you know, it's entertain. I mean, I hope I entertain. I think I'm funnier between my poems. You know, I try to be entertaining. That's why I do music. You know, I have and thank you for playing the record Black Tea earlier. You know, I love having my quartet with me because then I can do Blue Note and I can put poetry in those different spaces. But at my core, you know, it is really poetry. It's really just storytelling. It is really just is what Gil Scott Heron was doing, who's my hero. You know, and with when it comes to poetry and music and finding that delicate balance. But I've become an entertainer with the music, but when I'm being a poet, I don't know if I'm entertaining, but I know I'm teaching and I know I'm touching.
Well, for people to pay attention, you have to be entertaining. So whether you're, you know, in a classroom teaching, there has to be some sort of entertainment factor there. You know, it's just like watching documentaries. There has to be something that keeps your attention, and that's an entertainment factor of it. But I don't look at it, or I don't want people to look at it as being entertainment. I want people to look at it as being, you know, this is a necessity. This is like, this is life, you know. And even though it's entertaining, doesn't mean that it's, you know, entertainment, you know, that, because when you get into that entertainment factor, it can walk into being some type of throwaway thing, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, you can't get rid of poetry, man. You know what I mean? It was it predates rap music. You know, it's where rap music was born out of. You know, the sitting around some fire, you know, exchanging stories from the hood. I mean, it's not that different. My new book is We Want Our Bodies Back. I mean, it's unapologetically for Sandra Bland. It's I know if Black women's lives, you know, I guess I entertain people. Enjoy my performances of my poem, but the work is heavy, and it's not all of it. I read some poems about sunshines, rainbows, and shit, but for the most part, the work is like heavy, right? So I mean, I crack a lot of jokes between the poems, and I laugh a lot, and I'm a happy person, but the work, you know, I mean, I'm a metaphorical daughter of the Black arts movement. I'm a daughter of Sonia Sanchez and Mary Baraka and Hakimata Buti and Naomi Law Magid, who we just lost here, our Detroit Poet Laureate. I'm a daughter of those writers, and they weren't on TV. I'm old enough, and thank God, that I learned poetry from reading books, Carl. Like there was no Def Poetry Jam. I hadn't done the Apollo. You know, I was really a reader when I was a little girl, and so
So who is the female equivalent of Iceberg Slim?
Female of Iceberg Slim, as far as a writer?
Writer, but you know, he did records as well. So I don't know if you've seen any of
I know Iceberg Slim.
Yeah.
Well, and Donald Goines too, who I love, you know. I don't know, you know. I love to be like me, but I don't know.
Well, were you a pimp?
Nah. Well, depends on what we're talking about. We talking about poetry, we talking about real life. I'm just kidding. I don't know. You know, I don't know who the feminine version of that is, but I know that like Ntozake Shange, you know, was to me one of the most gangster writers. We lost her a few years ago, and like when gangster rap came out, and I found Ntozake, I was like, I ain't heard nothing. I ain't heard an MC destroy the alphabet more gangster than Ntozake. You know, I haven't. And so I think Ntozake, if there was an Iceberg Slim version of a poet, it would be her. She was just gangster. Like her approach, like even my approach to poetry, like someone was asking me about Love Jones. Like when it first came out, I hated the film because I was too close to it. And I just didn't like how they put the drums. You know, it's all typical, the congas and what people think about poetry. But I'm like, you know, I'll put a rock band behind that. No, or me, I got a techno record with Jeff Mills. Like I always thought about my work outside of the narrow lens of what people thought it belonged. right?
Right.
And so the way I approach, and then how I dress for the show. Yeah, I talk a lot of political, very serious issues, but you come to my shows and I'm dressed. You know what I mean? I have on a cape, I got on a train, I got on 3-inch heels, and I got on a fly-ass hat because I'm going to show up like that because I'm from Detroit. And I used to hide my body when I was younger and on the mic because I was around a lot of hip-hop, rapidy rappers, and they can't focus on me and listen to me at the same time. So I'm putting on big old Maurice Malone t-shirts and big old jeans and overalls to try to cover up what I look like. And then I got to a certain point, I got to New York City and I saw these rock and roll women and they didn't have on nothing. And everybody was listening. And I was like, I'm about to do what I do, write how I write. I'm gonna wear what the hell I want to wear.
Sure.
And I think that's how women like the Iceberg Slims to me are more like the Tamara Kali's, Liza Colby, like with Joy, like the innovative Kimberly Nicole, these sisters that I rock with who are not poets but are poets in life. How they operate in the world is so magic. And so, yeah, we're not given a lot of space. We have to take space. We have to take space, or space as a given. And and so that I hear you on the entertainment part because I don't have any apologies for any of that. I don't. I got to the point in an age where I was mature enough. I was like, brother's just gonna have to focus because I'm a woman, and this is how I look when I read my poems. But I go in prisons and jails. You know what I mean? I don't got to wear a head wrap and a dashiki and burn incense in order to be doing work in my community. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a costume and shit. Like, it's like either you doing that work or you not.
Right.
But the part of like owning my sexuality, I learned from like Eartha Kitt and Grace Jones and Jimi Hendrix, who's like, I think she turned 77 this year, who looks like her body looks, she like 60. 55, maybe she could come get my boyfriend. I think Nona is fine. You know what I'm saying? Nona is.
You got some competition right there.
Whoa, Nona! No, we look at Nona. We be like, when I grow up, I want to be just like that. So, and even Nina Simone, who's one of my, spirit animals. Who the things she just said yes to, and the things she turned down, and the things you decide, like, you know what, I'm gonna say this unpopular thing because it's deep. Like, what's happened for me during the pandemic is my work is very outside culture. It's not it's not mainstream culture. I'm screaming from the outskirts. And now suddenly they killed George Floyd on TV and everybody was home looking at it. So suddenly I've gotten all these calls from corporate entities who are interested in my voice and want me on panels and want me to help them figure this out.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's great that you can, you're the cat that they're coming to as far as that's concerned. But, what I don't, mentioning George Floyd and stuff, what drives me crazy about the press and about social media and all that stuff is that unfortunately his tragedy has become entertainment. And it's really so ugly. It's just really ugly. And again, people just, on both sides love to use it in whatever way that they please to use it. And it's really tragic,
I can't look at it. I can't look at the porn of it, of us being killed, God, watching it over and over again. Breonna Taylor, the same. Sandra Bland, her videos, I can't say I did watch. I didn't see her get murdered, but I saw the way the police officer treated her on her pullover. I was able to watch that one because I knew she wasn't getting murdered at the stop. They murdered her later. But it's still very traumatic. I met Tamir Rice's mother and I hugged Tamir Rice's mother and I hugged her soon after she had lost her son, and I didn't know how she was standing up because I got a little boy. And I was like, I couldn't imagine someone taking my baby that way, within seconds, and those cops got off, And this is the trauma that Black people in America live with, we live this, and so we have work to do, and so it's, to call it entertainment is interesting, for me, because there's definitely a fine line, because, there's a fine line for me, like, so it's entertainment, at the same time, I'm a movement artist. I'm also about movement, not just for us to dance, but movement, like, we have to change some things. We have to organize. And so my voice has always been like a catalyst for that, if nothing else, and hasn't always been, I'm saying it doesn't keep me rich. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make everybody want to give me all the money, but for 25 years I've been doing it. So our ancestors with me, God is my agent. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Like,
God is your agent. That's beautiful.
God is my agent. Thank you.
So, shifting gears a little bit.
Yeah.
I like saying that.
Let's do it.
Shifting gears a little bit. So, when you go to Ohio for
Awesome. Yeah.
for Chappelle's thing,
Yeah.
so tell me something about that. Tell us something about that.
Yellow Springs is deep, man. So I spent most of the pandemic in the summer in Yellow Springs, Ohio, which is Dave is from the area, lived there for many years with Elaine and his children. And so Talib is one of my dear friends. He's down there. He's like, yo, Dave is down here. I'm in Ohio. Come. So I'm like, that's something I've done anyway. Anytime I'm in Ohio, Dave would come out to my shows. If I was in Dayton, he'd be like, where's Jessica Carramore? Tell her Dave is here. You know, he's hilarious. So I've known Dave since the open mics in New York City. So we came up in the same scene. I watched him become very famous. But I'm friends with my same friends. No matter how famous they become, they my friends. And so we created an artist colony. Like Dave made it possible for all of us. So Michelle Wolf, I mean, everyone's down there. Donnell Rawlins, who's like my dear friend forever. Chris Rock came through. John Stewart. You know, anybody. John Mayer. We're all there. Common came through. You know, Tiffany Haddish came through. I didn't catch everybody, but I was there for a lot of it with my son. And every 3 days we got COVID tested, so everyone had a wristband. Now this thing, Dave, a comedian, had this shit figured out better than the country, right? Better than the former president. How to keep people safe. And so we wouldn't hug or anything unless the person had on the correct color band. So I'll say, wow. Check out your band. Oh, okay, you safe to hug. 3 days go in, you got to get another test. And so, I mean, he's rich. We had the rapid test, the 15-minute test. They had to wait no days. You get the thing, and you know within 10 minutes that you got, you're COVID-free. And in the comics, like it was just beautiful because we got to have some sense of normalcy. And it was the power, it was the way that we show how artists can actually figure out the world. I was like, if we just applied this to the rest of the country, people could be alive right now. And I needed it. It was really cathartic. I lost a lot of people, as I'm sure you have. Being in Detroit, this black place, I lost so many friends, so many people, so many of my friends lost family. I needed to be, it's the only place like in Detroit I didn't feel safe in Michigan. I drove that 3 hours to Yellow Springs and stayed for weeks at a time because I felt like I could take off my mask and hang out. Dave catered, like sent food trucks. You know, we had Sunday dinners at his home.
Beautiful.
Donnell Rawlins was cooking his ass. I couldn't believe how Donnell. I know my boy could cook. You know, you learn things about people, right?
Right.
Me and Dave have known each other for years, but we had even more intimate conversations. You know what I'm saying? So it was really special. You know, it felt really special, and it's my only audience, really, since in a year. I had a full, huge audience, and he asked me to read, and I said, well, you know, my poems ain't funny. What you want me to do? What's funny is that my son King has opened for Dave here at the Fillmore doing his poetry. But I had never opened for Dave, and I was like, I had done a show with Dave. I did at the Fillmore. I closed the show out with Mos Def and Talib once. Pictures him pulling me on stage, but he put me on the show, and I said, I'm gonna do I Can't Breathe, poem I wrote for Mike Brown. What's up? He said, do it just like that. And I went out and the crowd loved it. He gave me a big hug afterwards. And I wrote about Mike, the piece I Can't Breathe is about me going to Ferguson and having AR-15s in my back and being a mother and me going, why am I here? You know, and King was young then. And I was like, but I'm here because I am a mother, right? That's why I'm there because for 7 years, summer straight, I was in St. Louis Juvenile Detention Centers teaching creative writing and poetry to kids that look like children of revolutionaries in jail in juvie, coming back telling Miss Jessica, I'm coming back next summer so I can see you. Crazy, you know what I mean? I was like, come back to this jail, come see me, boy.
Like it's camp.
Like it's camp, you know what I'm saying? It's not camp, you know. But I knew that's why I went to Ferguson. So the piece was kind of it's from a mother's perspective. But you know, Dave, it's a real special person. You know, that Virgo brother, man. He's and he didn't make money off them shows. You know, he was really losing money. But
you have to do stuff like that. Yeah, you have to. I mean, you can't. It's great to always make money, but sometimes you got to pay for your independence. Sometimes you have to pay for your freedom. And you know, that's what it seemed like to me. You know, from what I saw. Now, I didn't see your performance there because I haven't gone there. So the only thing that I've seen was his performance. So did you do one or did you do multiple?
I just did one. I did one poem. I can't
one.
read. I did one,
Right.
and then the rest of the time I was there. It was there for the hang.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
King,
No,
it was so funny though. King has been around all these people his whole life, so he doesn't know who's famous or not. He just thinks artists are artists, which is fine. But until Chris Rock showed up. And then Chris Rock showed up and sat down next to King, and I was looking. King, Dave has a little club called the Shack. It's like his little personal club. And so Chris sat next down to King, and I'm looking at King's face, and I could tell King is like, "Yo, Chris Rock sat next to me." And so I was like, "Chris," I said, "That's my son King. You should say hi to him. I know he's freaking out that you sit next to him." And Chris is like, "Oh man, no big deal." And so I'm like, "King," I said, "Dave's one of the most famous comedians in the world. He's been your friend since you were a little boy." I said, "What's the big deal about Chris Rock?" And he said, "Mommy, Madagascar." He said Madagascar, girl.
Right. Yeah.
So Chris is famous with the kids because he's the zebra and damn Madagascar. And so I was like, oh, okay,
Right.
So, artist sanctuary, like the power of that. And I've collaborated nonstop the entire pandemic. I made a film with Jonesy D in London. With 3 dancers, in one in Germany, one in London. I don't know what the other sister was. I can't remember. But they were in 3 different countries, and made a choreo poem film called "Our Bodies Back" after the poem.
Right.
I put Jeff's record. Me, Jeff, and Eddie Fowlkes put out "The Crystal City Is Alive," and that came out in 2020. My book came out in 20. Like, people still talk about 2020 was a hardcore year, but I could look back at it and say, I still pushed out some art. In the middle of it. Yeah.
Now, the Beneficiaries project, which would you consider that techno, or what would you consider Beneficiaries? How it turned out, because you worked with 2 techno legends, which is Eddie Fowlkes and the local dynamo legend Jeff the Wizard Mills.
The Wizard. Yo, you don't understand. Like, I was a little girl on the radio listening to the Wizard, and so. Yeah. Being friends with Jeff has been a very surreal experience for me, and because he was like on the top. I mean, I've been wanting to work. I want to do a record with you. I want to do a record with. I've been wanting to work with everybody. I'm like waiting for like the techno house. I'm like, could y'all tell? I want to do it because I know that the poems and the words and the language can find a nice balance, and I've always wanted to do more of that. And so Jeff, I was really, really nervous with him, to be honest. And he's such an interesting. What I love about him is he's truly an artist, and the first thing I did with him was I narrated something for NASA. He had a NASA radio show. So I met him. Zaina hooked us up, thank you, Zaina from Spectacles.
Yes,
and
Zaina.
Yeah, and I knew it was him because she said, there's an artist that's trying to get a hold of you. And it was all mysterious. I said, I hope it's Jeff Mills. I wanted to see him, and it was. And then I realized that the brother went to Mackenzie, and I thought, you went to Mackenzie? I was like, I went to Cody. I think he was at Mackenzie with my brother Mark. So we didn't have to, what he loved too is that we didn't have to explain. When you're from Detroit, you don't have to over explain who you are. You kind of know it. Oh, you went to Mackenzie. Okay, you.
Yeah, right. You know exactly who you're talking to. Because, I mean, it's not like Freaks and Geeks. It's not like, some sort of, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's nothing like that.
No.
It's like, if you go to Mackenzie, either you are a thug or you're somebody trying to stay away from the thugs. It's one of the two.
One or the other. Yeah.
One of the two. Yeah. My brother went to Mackenzie as well.
Did he?
But like my brother was on the thug side. He was the thuggish side.
Okay.
But I met Jeff when I was about 15 years old, and when I found out that Jeff had gone to Mackenzie, it was like, what? Jeff went to Mackenzie?
I couldn't imagine him at Mackenzie.
It's like, but I went to Cooley. That's where I went.
Cooley, yeah.
So it's
that's where we from, though. That's what makes us special, though, man. Cooley, Cody, Mackenzie. That's some real ass Detroit from high school. I used to tell people in New York that they'd ask me what school I went to. I was like, well, I didn't go to Cass. Because that's all they know is Cass.
I got kicked out of Cass.
Oh, of course. That's fantastic. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I got kicked out.
I don't know if the record's a techno record. To me, it's a techno record because it's Jeff Mills and Eddie Fowlkes. I mean, what's interesting about techno is that there isn't normally a lot of space for words. So I remember having this deep conversation with Mike Banks, who's one of my dear friends, years ago. Because me and Mike, I spent a lot of time together. And I was like, Mike, let's make a record. Let's go. We running the hill together, working out. I'm like, Let's make a record. And everyone can't see what to do with the words because the music is really the thing, right? And so words seem to get in the way. It's almost like we're fighting against each other. And so when I went in the studio with Jeff, he was telling me to whisper, to repeat. I'd listen to him. I absolutely let him direct me in the studio. I was like,
That's
whatever
good.
I just brought all kinds of texts from all kinds of places. And actually, the first thing I wrote 7 pages of what I thought was the baddest shit I ever wrote in my life. And his response on the email was, very interesting.
Right. Oh, that sounds like Jeff, yes.
I was like, what did you just say? I was like, I'll be right back. So I went back in, like, I wrote something else. And he's like, now I can start writing. Now I can start making my music. So it was truly a collaboration. And Eddie got a piece of what they all broke it up and did different things. But Eddie's music, sounds very different than Jeff's music, even on the record.
Yeah. So that's 7 pages. When you went back, was it a situation where you went back and scaled it down, or you just wrote something new?
I wrote something new.
Oh, you wrote something new.
Yes. I was like, oh, okay. My ego. I needed that though, because when people, have been clapping for me for a long time, so I need someone to go, it's cool. Right. Oh, very interesting. No, that's not what I want him to say. I want him to say, now I can maybe get to work. And I wrote something. I scrapped it. I think a piece of it is published in my book, but I needed him to be excited so that he could start creating. And then I brought even more work when I came to the studio. I had that stuff, then I brought some more text, and we just played. We just got to play. So the music puts you. I've listened to it in a lot of different settings, and it'll put you in a trance, man. And I love Eddie. What he did is very African. I like the drums. Eddie got them drums, and you can just, Sundiata, I think is playing. Miles, he's on there.
Ife too, I think is in there.
Yeah, and Amp Phillips is somewhere in there too, doing something.
Right.
So
good.
So and the beneficiaries came out, like that was the idea of us coming together. Like Jeff, although I saw Jeff, that's when I saw him. He was in Paris. This was someone have to do anything Detroit related. He's famous all over the world, right? Nobody has to live here. You don't have to live here. But he wanted to do something with a Detroit poet. For whatever reason. He said, I have never worked with a spoken word artist. So he really wanted to explore. And the thing is, when you're a real creative, you don't get to a point where you're like, oh, I've done everything. Right. You don't get to that point. I just had a libretto made out of my poem, Ramadan 20 versus COVID-19, that just got released 2 weeks ago with the New York Opera Company. 17-minute libretto, which is really a homage to our city and the resilience of our people and how we get through prayer, through meditation, through spirit, how we get through something called a pandemic, with this thing called poetry, with this thing called faith. And so I wrote about it, and now I have this beautiful sister, Latoya Lane Washington, I'm hoping I'm saying her name right, singing this 17-minute libretto based on a poem I wrote.
Beautiful.
Yeah, man. So, there's no limitations, so I'm just consummate collaborator. I'm very bored. If it's just my voice, I'm just kind of, I started publishing books in 1997, publishing the poets in New York City, because I wanted to create a movement and an institution around poetry that didn't really exist for the younger Black poets anyway at the time. And I learned from the techno, I learned from underground resistance. And I was very young at those parties, but I saw that they were branding their thing. And I knew, I was like 16, 17 as a baby up in the whatever, St. Andrews or 1515 or wherever they were, like the DJs were at. I was there, and young, probably shouldn't have been there, but I was there, and I was paying attention, and learning how to build. And even from Maurice Malone, I learned a lot, because I used to run the hip hop shop on 7 Mile. So I learned how to run a company. I watched him brand his stuff. Yes. And, I watched him in Japan selling things, in 92 and 93, early.
Because Maurice, he, he's another legend from Detroit, and I think for the most part, people know who Maurice is because of Eminem coming to the hip hop shop. That's where a lot of people know, but they don't. I don't know if so many people know his clothing. Wow. But Maurice, I know Maurice through Derek May. Because Maurice used to come down to the Music Institute. Yes, and Music Institute. Yeah, and that was so that's how I know Maurice. Yeah. So on your project Black Tea, you have collaboration with other ladies, right? Yes,
Ursula Rucker.
Yes, Ursula Rucker.
Imani Zuri. Who else on that record? Yeah.
So do you find that you have you're saying that you collaborate so much and you're the consummate collaborator.
I want to be, yeah.
Do you find it easier to collaborate with women or with men, or does it make a difference, or
No,
do you
I've
feel
done more collaborations with men.
right?
More men have asked me. Let me just say
Okay.
this. I like to work with more women. Roy Ayers is on my project.
Yeah.
Black Tea. He's amazing. Jose James is a wonderful friend of mine. He's on the project. Talib Kweli put the record out. So my first recording projects were with Nas, Antonio Hart, who was a saxophone player. I'm on Here I Stand. That was one of my first recordings. Weldon Irvine put me on his record. I'm on Common's new project, Beautiful Revolution. That's because of Kareem Riggins, though. Kareem's put me on his project, Head Not Sweet, and then he pushed me, and he's the reason why I'm on Common's new project. So I tend to, and let me just say, I'm a kind of a dude kind of girl. I hang out with dudes. I have 5 brothers. I was raised by my daddy, and I think that energy kind of comes across. But I love Black women, and I love Black women's voices. So Black in Rock, me and Divinity Rocks, actually during the pandemic, we actually have a collaboration that's coming. I like to do more with my sisters. Me and Stephanie Christian, who sings now with Inner City, as you know.
Yes, that's right.
Yep. Well, I put her on every Black Rock show that I've ever had. She sings all my songs. We have Jesse James and Grace Guns is our rock and roll project. Then we're recording. So we're in the process of doing that finally. So me and Stephanie are about to hit pretty hard with a rock and roll. I've been wanting to do a rock record forever. I was trying to do one and the music wasn't right, but we're finally going to do that. So that will happen. I've been more on the lines of curating for Black women, giving them space and getting out the way. But men, most of my musicians, like John Dixon wrote my album, Deshaun Jones on my saxophone, Chris Johnson on trumpet. It's a bunch of 3-legged monsters on my record, But
3-legged.
I'm sorry, I'm crazy. But I'm comfortable.
I love it.
I'm comfortable around brothers, right? I feel real comfortable around men, and I always have been. And women, I had to grow, and I had to almost build that community for myself, around women, because women can be catty with me or competitive. Well, I'm a very loving woman and like a supportive woman, but women are always kind of like unsure of me, especially if I come in and I don't have a date and they're like with their guy. I've always had to deal with that kind of bullshit. And I'm just not that type of girl. I'm not that kind of woman. I'm like, I don't want him. Otherwise, he would be at my house. So, but as far as women artists, I wish they would come. Who I want to work with, Michelle and Cello.
Oh, she's great.
I want to work with Michelle. Of all the women, like I want that one. I want Michelle, who I know she knows me, to call me.
I haven't talked to her in a long time, but I think Amp still talks to her. So if you want to do something, talk to Amp, because I think. But also on the rock front, because Mike Banks and I were talking about doing a rock record for a long time. So you should hook up with Banks, because Banks wants to do that. Well, I should, because Banks knows
I want to do it, and that's what I was at Submerge trying to make that rock record, and it wasn't. Michael heard me, and it was just not. You know when it's not sounding right. So it was cool, but I really we need, and we're looking for producers to help us shape the record, right? I can write all the lyrics, but we need a lot of help with the music end of it, so we want it to be ghetto metal. We want Black folks to feel it, but it's got to be rock and roll.
Maybe Skin from Skunk and Nancy would be a real nice one.
Great.
Yeah.
Hook it up.
She's around, definitely.
Really?
She's great. She's wonderful.
I would love to be connected. So I want to make and then when it wasn't sounding right, I ended up making Black Tea. That's how Black Tea happened. I was working on a rock and roll record, wasn't liking it, and me and John Dixon got in his little studio on the 3rd floor, and he started listening to me and wrote all those chords around my poems, and we just made Black Tea, and I'm fantastic. So grateful. I'm grateful.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Oh, John, I love him. Yeah, he was really excited. I showed him that I was doing your show. He was like, "That's wonderful." Yay, John. So.
All right, so we've gone 39 minutes so far, plus our sound check. So
sorry.
I think we should wrap it up. But tell everyone, what do you want to? How do you want people to know you as you wrap up right now?
Wow. That I'm a poet and I'm an author and I'm an interdisciplinary artist, and that I'm a people's poet, and I ain't going anywhere. I ain't going to that. I'm just getting started at 40 something. So it's a big year for me this year. Woo wee.
40 something. What?
What'd you say?
40 something. I thought you were 20 something. What's
Oh,
up?
so cute. Listen, you can tell people to go get this book. This is my new book. This will be one of
There you go. All
Go
right.
get this book. It's
We
everywhere.
want our bodies back. Beautiful.
And I want to just shout out to Gus. This is my record I wanted to show you. This is my
Okay.
gift. That's my Baba. My Baba, my teacher. Yeah, man.
Fantastic.
And that Detroit artist, that you got to come through here. If you are an artist with any kind of, you think you're doing something special, then you need to come hit Detroit so we can tell you the truth.
All right,
we'll let you know how good you aren't. Or are, but give up the love, but and more to come. And yeah, tell them to follow me on my Instagram page. And I love you, Carl. And we got a record to make.
Too. Yeah, we had our meeting. We got to have another one.
Let's do it.
Another few.
I'm ready. I'm home. All right, love you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to Jessica Carramore for hooking us up today, for speaking. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thanks to also to Dia Beacon, where my piece is showing their party after party, and they're hosting this talk as well as hosting the playlist that happen every day for Black History Month.
Nice.
And this is amazing. So thank you very much. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And,